Thank you for joining JTV News. I'm Peter Gay Coombs. Here are the headlines. Women cautioned to be wary of machete-wielding sexual predator. Young people say yes to jobs with the help of the Education Ministry. Commissioner of Police optimistic new governor will do more for law enforcement. Works Minister Mark Vanterpool urges Premier Smith.
We made the assessment early that we felt we could jump in and do it ourselves. We might need to make sure the ship is out there anchored to this one that's coming. So let's keep it close by, Premier, in case this one hits us. It's looking for a big one.
And what position was BVIEC in when the August 7th and 8th tropical wave hit?
This team essentially, unfortunately, were caught with I hate to say, our pants down, because typically, August, as all of us know, is the one period of time that the majority of persons go on vacation.
The big story this week, the territory's road to recovery after the recent tropical wave. In news further afield, Houston underwater. Caribbean nationals eager to play their part. Venezuela's political turmoil intensifies with treason trials. And garbage pile-up relief as bin workers in Birmingham, England are back on the job. Now, the recent flash flooding has reawakened concerns about mosquito-borne diseases. In our Mayo Clinic Medical Minute, Dr. Geronimo Jones examines the possibilities of a Zika vaccine. The details of these and much more after this short break.
If you're looking for extra savings and free benefits
with car insurance
and home insurance,
Colonial has just the cover you need.
there's a free $250 gift voucher for new home insurance customers too, and 10% car insurance discount if you have home insurance.
With a claim service that's quick and friendly.
We call it Cover Without Added Costs.
Call for a quote on 494-8450 or Virgin Gorda 495-6403 or visit cgigroup.com.
Colonial, where people come first.
Welcome back to JTV News. An incident that leaves a bad taste in the mouths of many has recurred. Women are being advised to be watchful and employ safety practices as police investigate the second reported case involving an attempted or indecent assault of a woman in 2 months. Following a Facebook post to the BVI Community Board on Thursday, alerting the public to beware of a sexual predator on the loose, a woman explained that a friend of hers was attacked by someone she described as a large man wielding a machete who threatened her friend's life if she did not do certain sexual things. Later that evening, the police confirmed the incident, stating that they are following several leads into a case of indecent exposure by a male at the Long Bay Beach on the western end of Tortola on Wednesday, August 30, and are seeking any information that could help to identify the perpetrator. And the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force says 2 separate searches within a 24-hour period yielded 2 loaded firearms and 5 arrests. On a Monday, August 28, the Immigration Department, along with customs officers, led the first search of an apartment in the Cox Heath, Tortola area, where 3 Venezuelan nationals were taken into custody and charged. A loaded firearm and a large quantity of cash were uncovered in that search. Then on Tuesday, August 29, police uncovered a loaded firearm and a kilo of cocaine after questioning the occupants of a dinghy in Little Harbor, Yost Van Dyke. 3 persons were arrested and charged in connection with the find. However, 1 was released. New Governor Augustus Jasper has not allowed himself to be drawn on the possibility of using his constitutional powers to support the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force as his predecessor John Duncan did, to compel the government to fork out more money from the Treasury for the police.
The key thing is that actually the government here rightly needs to set the priorities. They have to balance off a whole host of different priorities that are there. Security for me is something that I think is a key priority, but the balance of all of the different needs that you have in running an effective public service. The governor does come with a certain amount of powers. I'm vested by Her Majesty with a certain set of powers and by the Constitution. In a way, I see those powers as powers on paper, in a way, and powers that actually are more to enable a strong partnership rather than powers that I will daily be reaching for and grabbing in ways going forward. But obviously, in every issue, I'll be looking at, as I talked about, making sure that the right arrangements are in place and supporting, questioning, challenging where appropriate to make sure that things are in a strong place with the government.
The former governor declared before his departure that the United Kingdom will not entertain talks of independence unless progress is made on outstanding legislative matters such as access to information, whistleblowers legislation, and a human rights commission. On the divisive topic of constitutional reform and removing some of the governor's powers in order to transfer them to the premier and his administration, Governor Jasper says constitutional debates are appropriate, but he's more concerned with a partnership than powers.
It's not really for me to say. I will have, I will develop views, I'm sure, when I'm here. But actually, the constitutional arrangements here, the right ones, are those that fit what the people want here. At the moment, in 2007, people chose the constitutional arrangement as it is now, with the powers, as you point out, and it's when people want to change those constitutional powers, and that there's a debate to be had there. But it's very much a discussion that is more about the right arrangements for what the people of the Virgin Islands want. In a way, the priority for me is less about a binary debate about who has what power or who has exactly what responsibility, but a bigger debate about how do we work together and how do we get the right partnership to take this territory forward, of which we all have slightly different powers, slightly different relationships, and slightly different ability to influence.
The last review of the BVI's constitution was done in 2007. Premier Dr. D. Orlando Smith has stated that the territory is now due for another. Issues such as autonomy and shrinking the powers and role of the governor have resurfaced, but there's no word yet from the premier on when exactly the consultations will begin. Now, shortly after taking the oath of office on August 22, the territory's new governor, Augustus Jasper, made it a priority to engage the leadership of the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force. How did that interaction go down? Let's turn to a conversation the Commissioner of Police had recently with Kathy Richards on this and other pertinent matters.
Well, very fortunately, the Governor chose to come and visit the force the day after his swearing-in ceremony, which I was delighted about because that impressed upon me how seriously he takes security of the territory. We were able to sort of show him the progress that we're making in terms of trying to professionalise the force further, trying to create better working conditions for my staff, but also upskill, better equipment, better training, so that we can deliver a much better service for the people of this territory. What I impressed upon him, of course, is that we need to continue that drive. And whilst I recognise that there isn't always enough money to go around, it's not all about money. It is also about having commitment, it's about having that partnership, and he's spoken about that. And I'm hopeful and I'm convinced already that he is going to get behind us and help us to drive the agenda forward.
Okay, Commissioner, it is very noticeable that there must have been something new and different that the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force have been doing in its crime investigation quest. You've made great strides over the past few months, given the incidents that we've recorded here in the territory. To as much as you can speak to, tell me what has made the difference.
Well, unfortunately, crime is unpredictable and it comes in peaks and troughs, and that's generally the way it is. But as you rightly pointed out, the territory saw a very disturbing uprise in serious violence, and we saw 7 homicides in the space of 6 months. That was totally unacceptable to me. But as I've said before, you can't solve crime overnight. This is not the TV, this is the real world. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes skills. And what we are seeing is the fruits of our labours. We're seeing the results of many, many, many hours by our young detectives working hard to deliver justice for the territory.
Okay, and one other thing, Commissioner, we've experienced a recent natural disaster here in the territory. To what extent was the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force, what you did on the ground? Tell me everything that you played a part in this initiative.
Well, of course, our primary role is safety of the community, and when we have a natural disaster like that, first and foremost, I have to make sure my own officers are safe, because there's no good sending officers out into a disaster area if it puts them at so much risk that they can't help the community. So we were in constant contact with government, with the Department for Disaster Management. I was on the phone most of the night whilst that storm was going on, because we did manage to get some phone lines still running. And we all agreed plans for first light, so that once the rain had stopped and we could see the extent of the damage, who was going to do what. Our role, of course, primarily to make sure people remain safe, make sure properties remain safe, direction of traffic, doing our best to support the clean-up operation. But of course the government, and I have to say for the record, I feel have done a fantastic job, and the response was very, very rapid by the ministers concerned, and we have seen the results of that already. You know, we are 2 or 3 weeks on and we're almost back to normality. Of course there are still people suffering, and we shouldn't actually forget that, but you know, my hope is that the territory will be back on its feet sooner rather than later.
And during that course of time, did you come across any persons or individuals trying to take advantage of that situation where you had to arrest and stop people from doing illegal stuff?
Well, you know, tempers often get frayed in situations when people are under pressure like that, and when people have lost a lot of things. But I have to give praise to our communities. They dealt with this with dignity. And whilst one of our primary roles would have been about making sure shops don't get broken into during times like that, I can say hand on heart there was virtually no crime during that time.
That interview was done at the closing ceremony of the RVIPF's Summer Pan Camp on Thursday, August 31. Smoking in public spaces in the British Virgin Islands has been an illicit activity since the Tobacco Products Control Act of 2006, which is regulated by the Tobacco Products Control Regulations of 2007. The regulations stipulate that a fine of $50 will be charged to any person smoking tobacco or holding lit tobacco within 30 feet of the entrance, exit, or open windows of offices and office buildings, including public areas, elevators, stairways, and restrooms within the buildings. This stipulation also applies to health and educational institutions, sports facilities, restaurants, bars, nightclubs, facilities rented out for events, premises in which children are cared for, as well as beaches accessible to the public. The owners or managers are required to post approved no smoking signs in visible areas in these establishments. The Ministry of Health stated in February of last year that a fine of $125 will be charged to the owners or managers of public places who fail to prominently display the prescribed signs that clearly indicate smoke-free zones. But the regulating of unhealthy lifestyle habits as popular as cigarette smoking, as expected, has proven to be tricky and a challenging one. Ms. Ivy George, Coordinator, Health Promotion Services in the Ministry of Health.
We have a comprehensive program policy in terms of not that of smoke-free environment. However, we do have challenges, for there was a loophole in our act which did not find proprietors, just the person who was smoking in the public space. Especially we are having challenges with people smoking in restaurants and bars. And so we are in the presence now of amending our act and our regulation so that we can strengthen the areas that are not as strong as they should be, and some to meet international compliance.
Meanwhile, efforts are underway to progress the BVI's alcohol and tobacco policies. However, regulations geared at taxing unhealthy foods and sugary drinks to nudge residents onto healthier lifestyle paths by making unhealthy foods more expensive and healthier ones cheaper is encountering a slight holdup for the time being.
We have been talking about policies around food, but presently on staff we do not have a nutritionist, and that will be, we are hoping to have one next year, because that portfolio would be coordinated by such a person. we are dealing with alcohol and tobacco. We are getting assistance. We are right now getting assistance from the UK Public Health Agency. They are helping us to get ourselves prepared to sign on to the World Health Organization global framework for tobacco prevention and control.
Parents, leaders of all levels, and youths themselves have been crying out for help to be gainfully employed. When the Ministry of Education and Culture, under the leadership of Minister Myron Walwyn, established the Youth Employment Services, yes, its intention was to, as much as possible, answer those cries. Are they achieving that goal? Here is Kathy Richards with the latest.
The statistics are there as testimonies, but the reality can be seen when walking into a number of establishments across the territory, having 109 young persons, thanks to the Ministry of Education and Culture's Youth Employment Services, yes. The registrants, who are between the ages of 15 to 30, were hired in various industries within the territory, which ranged from construction to administrative services.
I'm very pleased with the progress of the Youth Employment Services program. I must congratulate Ms. Rochelle Lawrence, who is the program coordinator in the Ministry of Education and Culture, for the excellent job that she has been doing. For the second quarter of this year, we were able to find employment for 59 young persons in the territory, bringing the total for this year to date to 109, and that is absolutely remarkable. I must also thank all the businesses that have partnered with us very much for what they've been doing, and to congratulate the young people for taking such an active interest in their development. We were able to put an apprenticeship program together recently that has been doing very well, and I want to encourage as many other young persons as possible who are seeking employment to make contact with Ms. Lawrence at the ministry, and let us see how we can help you.
The minister says unemployment among young people continues to be a troubling issue. However, through the investment of some $250,000 in the government's 2017 budget, the Ministry of Education and Culture has done quite a bit to ensure that young people are able to sufficiently provide for themselves and their families. Coordinator of the program, Ms. Rochelle Lawrence, underscored the importance of local businesses providing an opportunity for young people of the territory. She said hiring of these 109 young people is certainly a positive step, as YES continues to seek avenues to eliminate the unemployment issue in the territory, and we are well on our way to doing so. But what do some of these beneficiaries have to say about the opportunities given to them?
My name is Tiwana Andrew, and I have been working with ZPCI for over a month. Working with YES was a very easy, professional, and quick process. I would encourage other young people to join our apprenticeship program and start working on your future. I would also encourage other businesses and organizations to give young people a chance and help them to be employed and work towards their goals.
My name is Omari Martin. I work at Parts and Power, and I'm with Youth Employment Services just over a month, and I'm encouraging business owners to encourage the young people to employ them, get them off the street, keep them out of trouble, and keep them focused on what's going on. My experience was kind of rough, you know what I mean? Not getting a job right off the bat, but you know what I mean? Once you keep focused and you might probably find what you're looking for.
Registrants of the Youth Employment Services Program receive the training in various areas, which include dressing for success, resume building, workplace etiquette, interview preparation, and professional branding. For JTV News, Kathy Richards.
Still to come on JTV News, in the big story, the key officials leading the territory's tropical wave recovery tell us about the progress being made. Works Minister Mark Vanterpool urges Premier Smith. And what position was BVIEC in when the tropical wave hit? But first up, other news making headlines further afield.
Here in the Virgin Islands, we are blessed to live and work in paradise. Paradise just doesn't mean our tranquil blue waters and green hills. National Bank of the Virgin Islands defines paradise as any place or condition that fulfills your aspirations. To me, paradise means knowing that I will have a financing partner when I'm ready to open my first business. I feel confident that I can manage whatever life throws my way because I know my bank will be with me every step of the way. That's why I choose National Bank of the Virgin Islands, the official bank of paradise.
My future's looking so bright, 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 with the official bank of paradise, paradise.
National Bank of the Virgin Islands, the official bank of paradise.
Several Caribbean associations and businesses in Texas under the banner Dallas Unity are banding together to rally relief items such as non-perishable foods, baby and medical supplies to assist victims of Hurricane Harvey in Houston. The Caribbean Community CARICOM has also extended its sympathies to the government and people of the United States, with Secretary General Ambassador Erwin LaRocque stating that the unprecedented nature of this climatic event highlights the unusual nature of weather patterns that continue to affect nations across the globe. Mega shelters now open in Houston, Texas, which upwards of 30,000 people are expected to call home until floodwaters recede and they can get down to the daunting task of piecing their lives together. 33 persons have so far been confirmed dead by authorities. The governor of Texas has estimated that more than $125 billion will be required for recovery from the federal government. President Donald Trump has pledged $1 million of his own money to aid efforts.
It is a colossal rescue effort. Thousands stranded, taken by boat and helicopter.
Water's so high, the boats are going over the top of the cars.
Saved using anything that floats. Their faces tell the story of anguish, anxiety, and fear.
The water was up to here. I walked out and I was just like screaming. I seen somebody, they tried to put us on air mattresses. It didn't work. They had to put the babies on air mattresses. People were carrying babies on their shoulders.
With emergency responders overwhelmed, Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner is asking people to call 911 only if their life is in danger, as he defended his decision not to issue a mandatory evacuation order.
But I want to thank those thousands, in fact, millions of Houstonians who heeded the advice and did not get on the road.
The city has now opened its convention center for evacuees as rescue teams plead for the public's help.
Those of you who have boats and high water vehicles that can be used in neighborhoods to help move people out of harm's way, we need your help.
And Houstonians have responded en masse. While scrambling to save her mom from floodwaters in a nearby city, Samantha caught on a flooded interstate herself, climbing to safety.
I didn't think it was that deep.
America's fourth largest city fighting to survive a still unfolding calamity.
We were here just 48 hours ago and there were only 700 people. Now there's more than 9,000 people according to the Red Cross. As you can see, people are sleeping on the ground. There are not enough beds for everybody. When we were here, they had 1,200 beds. They're trying to get 5,000 cots, they say. That means about half of the people don't have beds. That's why they're sleeping on the floor.
Valencia Grace and her son Jalen are now among the hundreds of people who've taken up shelter in one of Mac's stores.
It's good to be here away from the flood because it would have got, when it started raining, it would have got all the way right here.
The water started to come in the house. And it was coming in so fast, we had a matter of time to get out the house.
Grace and her son got in one of the trucks that Mac deployed to rescue people from the rising floodwater. He's also providing food, breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the evacuees.
We thank Mr. Mac for opening up his doors to us because we didn't know where our next meal was going to come from or clothes on our back.
Mac estimates it costs $30,000 or $40,000 to keep his stores up and running through the crisis.
We can afford that, and what we can't afford is to cause these people to lose hope. We got to give them hope. This is what my parents would have done.
The political crisis in Venezuela deepens with the new Constituent Assembly formulated by embattled President Nicolas Maduro voting to place opposition leaders on trial for treason. The assembly, consisting of government supporters, aims to take action against persons accused of supporting economic sanctions the U.S. has applied to Venezuela. President Maduro has accused the U.S. of trying to cripple his country's economy, which, gripped by an economic recession, has been hit by streams of violent protests and shortages of food, medical supplies, and other basic commodities. And after weeks, bin service workers in Birmingham, England, are back on the job after creating quite a stink.
Okay.
Back with a smile on their faces, Birmingham's bin men have got a deal they're happy with. No downgraded jobs, no loss of thousands of pounds of pay, but in return the council want them to work a 5-day week.
We had to make a stand, and we believe we've made a stand following all the processes, and we've achieved our objective, and we're chuffed about that.
Yeah, we've lost money, but now we can move on now, pay our mortgages, get back to work and do the job we're supposed to be doing and clear the streets.
It's taken 48 days of picketing and protesting to get here, and unions are claiming it's a victory for the workers.
Common sense has prevailed. This ultimately was about working people being asked to pay for mismanagement and for poor practices of the past, and that is not happening, and that's a victory for common sense, and my members can be very proud of the role that they played.
In neighbourhoods across the city where rubbish has been festering, there's now relief.
Hallelujah, and thank God for that. It's been such a relief now, knowing that they've gone back to work.
At last, no more stinking streets in Birmingham. It's about time, really.
Marvellous, I'm delighted.
Unions have paid tribute to this man, City Council leader John Clancy, for his part in brokering this deal. Others, though, have been critical of the time it's taken.
This dispute has gone on for too long, but it's important to welcome the fact that those involved in the dispute came together and ultimately an agreement was concluded. Not least because I cannot remember an event in Birmingham where there's been quite as much expressions of public concern as there has been over this dispute.
The only words from the council today, not ones of delight and relief, just a reminder that no formal position on the dispute will be made until there's been a special cabinet meeting.
Coming up next on JTV News, in the big story, the key officials leading the territory's tropical wave recovery tell us about the progress being made. Rotary Club of Tortola honors brave servicemen and women.
What do Toyota and Legacy Auto have in common? You can shop your 2017 Toyota models at a very special price at Legacy Auto. In stock now. Get the all-new 2017 Toyota Hilux. Same legendary SR5 engine. The ultimate work or play pickup truck. Drive out in style with the all-new Toyota Tundra. The ultimate power and control. If that's still not right for you, or about the all-new 2017 Tacoma. Legendary. Need we say no more? The right choice for any adventure starts with the 2017 Toyota RAV4. Our legendary reliability at a price that you can afford. Also available at Legacy Auto, Toyota 4Runner, Toyota Highlander, Toyota Corolla, and the all-new 2017 Toyota Yaris in hatchback and sedan models. Legacy Auto is located at the R&R Malone Complex, Packwood Pond. Come test drive yours today and feel the power of Toyota beneath your feet. Legacy Auto.
Welcome back to JTV News. It's time for the big story, where Kathy Richards and I are joined by some of the persons leading the charge at the territory's post-tropical wave recovery efforts at a time when the territory is on alert for another potential disaster. The events of August 7 and 8 will forever be etched in the minds of anyone who was residing or visiting the British Virgin Islands at that time, as the unexpected impact of a tropical wave uprooted lives and property. It's on to the recovery efforts, counting the costs, assisting the devastated, and planning the way forward, and learning lessons that are there to be learned. To help us today on The Big Story, to look at the recovery efforts for the territory, we have joining us the head of the Recovery Task Force, the Permanent Secretary in the Premier's Office, Broderick Penn, the Director of the Department of Disaster Management, Charlene Dabrio, and the Deputy Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Communications and Works, Jeremy Hodge. Welcome to The Big Story, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Here's an issue that some persons get it, others don't, and it's about why wasn't there a declaration of national emergency, a state of emergency in the aftermath of the tropical wave 1, and why didn't the government let the RFA come and help? They wanted to help, so let them help. It's a big ship with all kinds of resources. The Premier explained in one of his updates why that decision was made. So for those persons who still can't comprehend, why is it that you would refuse help? Explain to them the rationale behind those two decisions.
Okay, I'm gonna speak a little bit about it first, but then I'm going to hand over to Charlene to speak specifically about what transpired, as well as to explain the process for declaring a state of emergency. And I think people should be very clear that we didn't do it, and we didn't do it for deliberate reasons, because we didn't think it rose to that level. It's a process that's done in consultation with people above our pay grade. But in terms of the RAF ship, I think the Premier did explain it in his statement. I think people, in some cases, are willfully not listening, and it is as simple as this: the ship, one, was a certain distance away from us, and Charlene will explain some of those details. I'm not going to get into that. There was a determination that by time that ship got to provide assistance to us, our recovery efforts would have been well in hand, and in fact they were. We had the event on the Monday, the Monday morning.
Yes.
I was just speaking to a contractor in the business community. He told me he was out on his backhoe the Monday afternoon after the initial set of hard rains, clearing Hundomscott. So I just want to point out the resiliency of our people to say that from time the event happened, we had started the recovery. We had started the recovery process. And on Tuesday, those efforts were even significantly accelerated. The response of Jeremy and his team in terms of starting to do the key things, clearing the roads, all the major blockages, etc. Those things were very well in hand. I've had this discussion with friends of mine and so forth, and I said, you know how much heavy equipment there is on this island? And I said, and they said, no. I said, I can tell you, it's multiple more than what is on the RAF ship. Having said that though, the point is that when the officials assessed where we were in the recovery process, a determination was made that the recovery was already well advanced, well in hand. And I think it's important for people to understand exactly what the ship does. The ship is an emergency response ship. They don't stay in your country for a week or 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, helping you shovel and do whatever else. And you can see with our disaster, a lot of what needed to be taken care of was the clearing of mud, the clearing of roadways, etc. By the Tuesday afternoon, most of the major roadways were already cleared by Jeremy and his team. The ship wouldn't help us do that. The washing down of parking lots, the sweeping of road, the clearing and drains and those type of things, that's not what the ship does, and Charlene can explain that a little bit more. But the point is that the critical things that need to be done, the government already had them in hand. Electricity was back up from Tuesday. That's something that they could have assisted us with. Water generation, we had no issues with water generation. That's something that they could have helped us with. So I think a deliberate decision was taken that the recovery efforts were well in hand. We were advanced with some of the major things that needed to be done, and so it wasn't necessary to have the ship come and try to help us clean up around town.
State of emergency.
I'm not sure I need to add more to that. The explanation is perfect. You know, the ship is a critical resource for the entire Caribbean region, and if we are to prematurely ask the ship to come here, and by the time they get here, we're already cleaning up, it's really a waste of resources. We were consulting with the governor's office, and we were informed on the Tuesday at midday that the ship was available, but it was off Anguilla. It would have taken some time, and when we calculated the time of getting the ship here, we were already moving. The ship, we didn't need a ship to come in to make water. Water was back up and running. Power was being restored. And I think we need to do, and I've spoken to the governor's office about this, we need to do a better awareness of what the real role of the ship is when it does come in, because it's really to get immediate action in a very short period of time, because the ship has to move on to other areas. Yes, there are skills on the ship that we will use if there were a major event, but remember that the impact was mainly to very specific locations on Tortola. It was not a territory-wide impact, and we had an emergency situation coming from a wave. This was not a storm. It was not a hurricane. It had no name. It was a wave, and we get 4 or 5 waves coming through every week. Unfortunately, it interacted with an environmental factor that created the level of precipitation that we had. In the United States, the federal government, the laws written by the federal government call for state of emergency, declaration of disaster, and all these terms. This is not the legal mechanism in the Caribbean. You can declare areas that can be disaster areas, and we did that in 2010, but only to allow for the release of water, and this was done to support the infrastructure work where we had certain areas that we could not access. And the legal mechanism that was there to allow that kicked in. So we had an order that was issued for 4 specific areas to allow for the release of water from those areas to prevent any further problems. But you would not see many countries in the Caribbean moving into this unless it is a requirement for international aid. As I said, we can declare particular areas, but we were up and running. We did not have a disaster. We had an emergency situation that was being handled by a deployment of a number of resources from government that had the ability to address the problems that we had. And I wanted to make that very clear. But while you're on it, I also want to bring up another point here. You know, this whole issue of information, because the public, some members of the public was very critical that the government did not give the warning early. You go back to the DDM Facebook or website, and you look at when that initial notification was posted. From the 1st of June, we have been providing daily weather updates. These are provided on the radio, they're provided via television, they're provided by St. Thomas. We have access to that level of information. At 8:11 on Monday morning, we issued a weather advisory with cautions that there will be rain, that there will be the potential for thunderstorm activity, and that individuals need to start exercising some level of awareness to what was happening. Later on in the morning, we made contact with the Festival and Fairs Committee, and when the rain started, there was a decision to close. A very difficult position, because that had never happened in the history of the BVI, but for safety purposes, the decision was made to close the festival. And a lot of individuals chose not to adhere to that warning and not to adhere to that instruction. We don't have a mechanism like the United States where we have mandatory evacuation or curfews. Our laws are not written because we are good people. We normally follow rules.
Watch the entire big story starting on Sunday at 1 p.m. on JTV Channel 55. Now, not very often are they put on a pedestal for the work they do, which is unarguably not matched with the pay they receive as employees. But recently they got some accolades when the Rotary family of the BVI pulled a few pennies to make some plaques that will forever sit on their walls of their departments. Kathy Richards has the details.
On August 7th and 8th, when that tropical storm unleashed its wrath on the British Virgin Islands, greatly affected was the particular island of Tortola.
I just wanted to say, the Rotary Club of Tortola, we were very pleased to start the initiation of the cleanup of the Rotown area. When we decided that we wanted to clean up, we didn't expect to see so many of the servicemen and women out there. That just made my heart sing. And to me, it was just fitting for us to recognize. And so at our next board meeting, I proposed it, and every single member said yes. I believe that we come from an organization where, an environment where we forget many times to say thanks.
And we want to thank you for inviting them over and showing appreciation. They are still hard at work, but they have done a marvelous job over the last couple of weeks. I can't thank them anymore on behalf of the government, Premier and the government of the territory for the work that they're doing, and I want to encourage them to continue.
The plaque reads, Rotary Club of Tortola, BVI, Merit Award, presented to BVI Fire and Rescue Services for their hard work and dedication to the BVI community during the August 2017 floods. Congratulations and thank you all so very much.
It is with sincere pride and appreciation to speak on behalf of, no offense to fire, no offense to public work, but the one true A team in the BVI. Very quickly. I am so pleased to be working with such a phenomenal and amazing group of individuals on a daily basis who are so committed and dedicated. What we do 365 days a year, 12 months a year, rain, sleet or snow, and based on climate change, who don't want to believe in it, at some point in the stage it might be snowing in BVI. We are there to do what we have to do. This team essentially, unfortunately, were caught with our, I hate to say, our pants down, because typically, August, as all of us know, is the one period of time that the majority of persons go on vacation. So essentially, when this storm came through, we were operating on a skeleton crew. And essentially, the crew, the team that you see here, is a team that restored the entire system.
I'd like to thank you for recognizing the Public Works Department and the role that we play in the recovery from the floods. I'd also like to thank my team. You guys did a wonderful job. Although we have the fire department and the electricity department that have to go out and do their thing, we have to clear the roads so that everyone can be able to function. So I really appreciate what you guys have done. A lot of us couldn't make it because we're still out there actually doing a lot of recovery work right now still. But thank you guys.
It was wonderful for the club to come together and to recognize the first responders. And yes, we have been doing it in the past, but it's been a long time. Many years that we've done it. I know that those first responders, electricity, PWD, and firemen appreciated the recognition, and we were very honored to do it and to have them amongst us. And I ended by saying that it is in the time of adversity that the British Virgin Islands and the British Virgin Islanders are at their best.
But there is more to that story. The heroes among the heroes who were honored here today by the Rotary Club of Tortola were special people in between. Astrid, in particular, had a very great story and experience that she shared with us.
And I was very touched today when all the firemen who came to our meeting, and among them I saw Melvin Jeffers. About 20 years ago when Hurricane George hit us, my landlady, Mrs. Totman, did not have anybody to help us, and we were living under the roof, and the roof started peeling off. I called the fire department. The storm was already so hard, and Mr. Jeffers, Officer Jeffers, with 3 or 4 of his firemen, came and nailed down the roof, saved everything that we have this way. And afterwards, I put a picture of the firemen on the roof in the storm in the newspaper in the Island Sun and wrote a little article to say thank you very much. These firemen are really absolute magnificent. Most people don't even know what they do for us. So we appreciate that they could come today.
So how you feel now to see that 20 years later, the very fireman is standing in an audience of a hero's job again?
Well, I was very touched. I gave him a big hug. I said, Mervyn, was you on my roof? He said, yes, it was me. And he even remembered. He said, and you put this nice story in the Island Sun to thank my man. And we really appreciate it because people usually, just like it was mentioned, one of the speeches, people complain, electricity is off, this is off, that is off. But nobody ever says if something nice happened. And I will never forget this. This was really so very nice, and I appreciated that.
We have a lot more cleaning to do, but we're still watching the weather come along. Again, thank you very much. Just the spirit that we want to see. There are various controversial issues. We made the assessment early that we felt we could jump in and do it ourselves. We might need to make sure the ship is out there anchored to this one that's coming. So let's keep it close by, Premier, in case this one hits us. It's a big one. Thank you all very much.
With that being said, we are again on yet another alert. Hurricane Irma seems to be heading this way, and the departments of disaster management, the office of the governor, the office of the premier, and many others are urging us to be prepared, not to be caught off guard. With this JTV News Report, I'm Kathy Richards.
Up next in our Medical Minute, the recent flash flooding reawakened concerns about mosquito-borne diseases. Dr. Geronimo Jones examines the possibilities of a Zika vaccine in our Mayo Clinic Medical Report.
Eureka, located in the British Virgin Islands. Come, discover Eureka Medical Clinic, which provides the most complete medical services in the Virgin Islands. Our state-of-the-art clinic offers the highest quality in specialty care, cardiology, gastroenterology, orthopedics, and spinal surgery. We also offer specialty care in obstetrics and gynecology, as well as dermatology. Eureka Medical Clinic offers diagnostic procedures such as x-rays, mammograms, CAT scans, and all forms of ultrasound exams. Now, for the first time in the BVI, Eureka offers MRI scanning too. With colonoscopy and gastroscopy, we check the intestines and stomach for polyps, colon cancer, and ulcers too. Located at Geneva Place in the heart of Road Town, Eureka Medical Clinic with Medicare Pharmacy and Labs offers you a comprehensive medical facility all under one roof. So for high-quality medical services and convenience, there's no need to look any further. Eureka, you found it.
You win the lottery?
Yep, even better. I'm an investor. I insured my vehicle with Premier Insurance Limited.
What's that?
That insurance company, correction. My insurance company. We are multifaceted. Vehicle breaks down, we provide roadside assistance. We do it all. We make handling of these matters easy for our clientele. From vehicle rental, to parts at below cost, to body work and maintenance. We do it all. Captain, where you going?
I gotta change my insurance. I want to be an investor too.
Quality services and better benefits. Shares available to policyholders after 3 years. Zero deductible for third party. Free roadside assistance with policy. Discounts for government employees. Special rates for drivers under 23 and older. For more information, contact Premier Insurance Limited at 284-495-6800 or stop by our office located at the Sunday Morning Well, Chevelle Center, for a policy that's easy to swallow.
As officials from Centers for Disease Control and Prevention continue to track the spread of Zika cases, medical researchers are busy behind the scenes working on a vaccine for the virus. In this Mayo Clinic Minute, Dr. Greg Poland, director of the Mayo Vaccine Research Group, explains the milestones that need to be reached before a vaccine becomes the answer to the Zika outbreak.
Dr. Greg Poland is suiting up for another round in the fight against Zika as work continues at Mayo Clinic on a vaccine for the virus, primarily spread through the bite of an infected mosquito.
You first have to decide on the method that you're going to use.
Dr. Poland's team is working on what's called a peptide vaccine.
What we'll be doing is isolating these peptides, determining how they have to be packaged.
Dr. Poland says a prototype vaccine is initially tested in cells taken from people who've been exposed to Zika. Next come animal tests, first on mice, then monkeys. If the vaccine still shows promise,
then you transfer it to a company that has the resources to begin testing this, what's called phase 1 testing in humans.
The first of 3 phases of human testing needed to complete a Zika vaccine. Dr. Poland says it will take time, probably years, to get there, but he believes researchers will eventually win the fight against Zika.
I absolutely believe that we will have a vaccine.
For the Mayo Clinic News Network, I'm Jeff Olson.
Before we go, a brief look at the main headlines. Police ask the public for assistance in apprehending machete-wielding sexual predator targeting women. 109 young people assisted with gainful employment by the Ministry of Education's Youth Employment Services so far this year. New Governor Augustus Jasper says he's less interested in powers and more so in partnerships. Commissioner of Police Michael Matthews says he is confident the new governor will advance the agenda of the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force. Health Ministry working to fix loophole in smoking ban in public spaces legislation, which fines cigarette smokers but not establishments. The big story this week, the Tropical Wave Recovery Team updates the territory on the progress being made in the aftermath of historic flooding and road and infrastructural damages, while urging residents to be prepared as the hurricane season peaks. In Caribbean news, Houston underwater, Caribbean nationals playing their part in recovery efforts. Venezuela's political turmoil intensifies with the Constituent Assembly voting in favor of prosecuting the opposition for treason. And garbage pile-up relief in Birmingham, England, as striking bin workers are back on the job. Now, just a reminder that you can find all the news stories featured in this newscast as well as previous newscasts on our website jtvlive.net. Additional information and news updates can be found on our Facebook page, facebook.com/jtv55. If you haven't already, please visit to let us know that you like us. Of course, all our news features, press conferences, and JTV's television programs can be found on our JTV News YouTube channel. Do subscribe for daily uploads. We welcome your questions and comments and story ideas. Email us at jtvnews@hotmail.com. On behalf of the entire production team, I'm Peter Gay Coombs. Thank you for watching.